I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the Conservation Commission. For all that who would like to, please rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do roll call. Brian Averbeck.
Here.
Samantha Woodman.
Here.
Joseph Laval. Here. Wilson Correa.
Here.
Excellent. And Nicholas Rudolph is here. John Shu is not in attendance. All right. Next up is the review and approval of the meeting minutes. Anything to add or discuss?
Looks good. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, first up is a continuation, a notice of intent, DEP file number 0610817, 23 Bay Road. Person representing this project would like to approach. How you doing?
Oh, there you go. Thank you. All right. I'm David Choi, architect, and we have with me Andrea Garcia, the applicant, the contractor applying for this permit.
All right, I'll give you a moment to set up here.
Yeah, please.
Did you have any results with the building department? And did they come up with any ideas to mitigate?
Not the building department. So last time I met with Building Commissioner Luis Cavagnaro, as much as mitigation, we didn't really speak, but I know he was for the addition. He said there was no problem with him to do it, but pretty much that's all he said.
Okay.
We have the waiver
But, okay, yeah, I don't know.
We are granted a waiver from the state building BBRS, so for a building in a flood zone. As far as mitigation is concerned, I think that the fence could be strengthened to protect people outside or neighbors outside of this property. Wouldn't be I wouldn't recommend like a PVC fence. I would recommend a much stronger fence, but that would allow water to drain out, but withhold any debris in the case of the worst case scenario. So there are mitigating factors. I think that under the circumstance, I could work with the owner and the contractor to come up with solutions on mitigating all the factors and run it by Mr. Lou Cavagnaro.
So just moving forward too, we want to make sure that there aren't any additional pervious surfaces, and that also means removal of the artificial turf on the property as well.
Right, so the artificial turf, which contributes to the impervious surface, will be removed, and we'll make sure that that equalizes the amount of pervious surface on the ground, and I'll make sure as the architect, and that any drain pipes downspouts will be directed to pervious surface.
Okay. So, anybody from the public want to speak for or against this? No? Any questions from the commissioners?
Yes, I had a question. I was curious if you had any thoughts about raising the elevation of the building at all. I know you're at elevation 0, so I just wasn't sure if you had looked into that at all.
We have looked into it, but again, cost-wise, the owner has not a lot of, I know that it could be very expensive to lift the existing property to above the elevation level, but cost-wise, definitely it won't work for her. But the addition will be 2 feet, raised 2 feet above the existing house floor level.
And for the foundation, is it flow through already, or what is the foundation right now?
I cannot verify the existing foundation, but it is slab on grade with frost wall foundation. Again, the new foundation, which will be tied in, will be elevated above, such that we're not causing any more non-conformance. We're gonna lift up the house as much as we can, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair? Hi. I noticed you're removing a shed. Do you know the dimensions of that shed?
10 feet by 10 feet. Yep.
Anything else?
Mr. Chair, when you remove the carpet or in the front, what do you plan to implement a replacement in there? Like, I just don't want, like, take it off, you put grass might be tough to grow there, because when you put the building, the shade might not allow the grass to grow. So just keep in mind if you put, or what is it, do you have anything in mind to put it in there as a replacement?
Yeah, I mean, we could look at gravel, pea gravel, or a combination of pea gravel and pavers that would actually, and obviously I would make sure that whatever pavers you have from street to the building entry, it's not going to contribute any more to the impervious surface, so.
I think it may impact, and the tree there, the tree will help, and that's something I heard you're going to keep there as well, right? Yeah. The trees, yeah.
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. If you're all satisfied, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the hearing out.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, hearing's closed. And if there's no further discussion, then I'd like to entertain a motion to vote on the NOI.
Make a motion to vote.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll get this signed, and we will send you guys a copy of this. But thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
for your time.
Thank you. All right, next up is another continuation, notice of intent, DEP file 0610818, 12-16 Pratt Street and Winthrop Ave. How you doing, Rick? Did everybody get the updated drawings from this as well? Okay, excellent. I'm sure you have them here too.
Yeah,
but-
thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Rick Salvo, Engineering Alliance. I hand this evening on behalf of Parkway Homes LLC. So a couple of things have happened since the last meeting. Obviously, as you heard, the DEP issued a file number. They made some comments. The comments were relatively minor. We had a note on the site layout plan that referenced the floodplain map, which was the floodplain map from 2016, which called this a zone AE 10. As you know, we had submitted documentation in the notice of intent that Suffolk Downs had done a letter of map revision, which we were able to benefit from, which reduced the floodplain from elevation 10 to elevation 7, based on their detailed study. So the corrections that we made for the DEP were really kind of administrative. It was updating that note to include the letter of map revision And then they asked us to better label the line, which is delineated in this fashion over here, which is the contour elevation 7. Since then, we also were able to have a site visit. Unfortunately, it was a day that was much like today, so we all got to see how the water runs through the property.
Yeah. Yeah, there was quite
So
a bit.
the commission members got a sense of the site. We agreed at that meeting that any asphalt that get removed in the area between the development and the brook would be stoned to prevent that area from eroding. And we're happy to do that. Probably expect to see that as a condition, I would imagine, in the order of conditions. Other than that, there really haven't been any other changes to the plan, so I'd be happy to entertain any questions or further comments that you might have.
I've kind of a random question for you, but with there being multiple streets and multiple street numbers, do you have an actual address for what this place will be?
Not as of yet. We will be filing an A&R plan and a discontinuance plan to discontinue some of the streets in here that over the area that will be developed. I expect that once those plans get filed, the engineering department would issue a new street number for this site.
Okay, so do you think it would be 212, 6, just one of them would be it with unit numbers, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what their exact method is, but it would be completely reassigned. There'd be 2 parcels here, they'd get 2 different addresses, and what they choose, they'll choose, with the input from public safety and so on and so forth, so.
Thank you, just was wondering out of curiosity, had trouble finding it, that's why I was,
Yeah, so hopefully that'll be corrected, by this development.
Thank you.
No, just something minor, but this is more for you. The documentation that we got today says 238, and here it says 250 units. So there is a discrepancy on the numbers. On the one that I received an email with the PDF, it says 238, but
Yeah,
this one
right.
says 250.
Yeah, I will fix that.
Yeah, but it's just, like I said, that for us, but it's just something to. Thank you.
250.
And with that, is there enough parking for 250 units there?
Yeah, so this has already gone through plan unit development, special permit by the city council, and all that was taken care of under the special permit.
And then one thing I want to follow up is the planting and the things that you'll be putting back once you do any of the stone, or you said you'll be leaving the tree line that's adjacent to the river?
Yes.
And do you plan on doing any other type of planting, and hopefully it's indigenous?
Yeah, so along there's gonna be no real work performed directly adjacent to the creek. We will get in there though, since we have machinery, and clean all the debris out of it, get the tires out of it, get the shopping carts that we saw out of it, and whatever debris might be in
Utilities.
there.
Yeah,
So there will be a cleanup effort. At this point in time, I don't think there was any plans to do any kind of planting or any heavy work in that area. We don't want to disturb anything that hasn't already been disturbed.
Yeah.
But that would likely come at a later phase.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Any other questions from the commission?
So what are the next steps before you would actually be able to break ground?
Building permit and a DCR access permit.
Do you have an idea of timeline on that?
I don't at the moment, so I think this is probably heading towards the next construction season, but I can't be certain that we're quite there yet. We've got a ways to go for building permit drawings and CDs and that sort of thing.
All right, thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, any comments from the public? If you could come up to the mic, please, and state your name and address.
Yeah, hi, it's Gail Miller. I'm with the Friends of Belle Isle Marsh. As you know, we are very concerned about the Rumney Marsh ACEC designation overall. Primarily, a lot of our focus is at the Belle Isle Marsh between East Boston, Revere, and Winthrop. But this project, of course, sits a little bit in the ACEC, so our major concerns are not only for here, but also at the marsh. So if I could, and I'd like to say, I did talk with Lorena, and I think last week, or I mean, a month ago, and I didn't realize, I think there was some communication lapse between the two of us. I thought because it was wrongly dated in the notice, the official legal notice, that it had to be continued to this month here, because the date was wrong last month. So my understanding was nothing would be discussed last month, so we lost the benefit of that. And today I just learned that it's recorded, so I guess I didn't know that. And so we'd like the benefit of having to, review that. And then we, thanks to Lorena, she just gave us a little copy of the minutes tonight. So, so if I could run through a few concerns that we have when we deal with marsh, concerns, if I could kind of run those by you quickly.
Sure.
Okay, so let me just throw my glasses on here. Okay, so, and we would like a chance to go through the document. I mean, we really need to sort of just review the film, the recording of the meeting, and then submit comments. So what we're asking at the outset is to continue this for a couple of weeks so that we could submit our comments for the benefit of the developer and the commission, if that would be acceptable, because we feel like we're disadvantaged having this, because I would have come last month, but I was sort of told that it was gonna go to this month and nothing would be really discussed last month, so.
Yeah, well, they didn't have a DEP file number last month, so that's why we continued it. Today is, so we've seen the site and feel as though, well, I can't speak for how the commissioners feel, but we haven't voted about it yet. But they have certainly demonstrated that they are fully capable of executing this project and doing it in a way that is going to have minimal impact on the resources adjacent to this project here. I can't speak for myself, but that's from what Rick and the developers have presented to us and what they've shown us in the site visit walkthroughs, that this project is going to be an enhancement on the neighborhood and ultimately not an impact on even further down towards the marshes where this would ultimately drain out.
And I would agree with what Chair says. I do feel that, we've given ample opportunity to them to demonstrate what they are trying to do with the property. We've walked the property, we've seen it. I do feel that as well, that we did have the opportunity before where we do put out onto the Revere website what is going to be on there as well. We do apologize if you weren't able to see it in time, but I feel any further delay to the project over, you not being able to see it in time just wouldn't be a good idea.
Well, I think this would eliminate an appeal process if we could just submit some comments, have the developer answer. Most developers, when they're on resource areas, don't really have an issue. Most of the time, it can work as a benefit.
So could you just submit the comments directly to the developer? He's about 5 feet from you.
Well, I don't have them in written form, which is something you really need to do.
I'm sure that he would
I
give
didn't
you his
bring
email.
them.
I'm sure he'd give you his email and be able to take that.
Well,
and-
don't you want the benefit of our comments? I mean, that's the purpose of a
But we
public
can
hearing.
do, what I'm saying is we could do it both ways, where we'd be able to get
No,
it
I
as a
mean, I would
commission.
give them to him,
Yeah,
of course.
But I'm just saying, in order
In
to
addition.
speed up the process and not delay anything, this way you're able to get it directly to them and to us without any further delays to their project.
So, I'm sorry, so what are you suggesting for time frame?
I mean, how soon would you be able to have those comments ready, do you think?
Well, I would like to listen to the presentation, go back and listen to the hearing last week, which we didn't have the benefit of
Sure.
course.
So the hearing's about, what, an hour and a half, you'd say?
Yeah, so that takes some time to listen and then digest and then write some comments, so.
I'd like to hear from the other commissioners about
I mean,
a
they are,
continuance on this.
they are a stakeholder of this site by being on the Belle Isle Marsh. I think it would be beneficial to have heard their comments. They are experts on the Belle Isle Marsh specifically. We are trying to protect that resource area. And I mean, as Rick said, like this project is likely not gonna break ground until next year, so I think delaying it a month and continuing
To-
it would,
yep.
to hear the comments and to hear from the stakeholders and have your assessment, wouldn't hurt the project long-term.
And I'm not even requesting a month, even
Right.
the
would have to
max
be-
2 weeks.
It would have to be continued to the next meeting.
To the next meeting next month.
If we were, if
Oh,
we
I
were
see
to
what you're
decide
saying.
that,
Okay.
yes. So, Joe,
That's
how would
fine.
you like to weigh in on this? Okay. Is that agreeable to,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. I don't understand your next meeting is what, May 1st?
yeah. If that's, to give these folks a chance to weigh in a little bit.
Yeah, that's okay for us.
Okay. All right.
And just as a note, I mean, I follow the Revere Journal, so that's where I get my notices. I don't go to the Revere website necessarily, so that's where I got the date. So,
All right.
just to,
Wilson, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, just to have an idea, like, will it be possible, like, what is on mind usually when these type of projects are happening? What are you looking for exactly in terms from the developer in terms of the project?
in terms of general concerns.
Yes. One of the things, and the reason why I ask is one of the things, and the developer, I'm sure, is, for me, is the plastics and keeping the area clean so it doesn't run into the marsh. That's one of the issues that I have with this project, keeping the area clean and keeping indigenous vegetation and trees. And I think
Exactly, yeah.
develop, and those are the things that I ask, and I think developer has done many projects, and there's something that they can work.
And
What
addition-
is it that you're
Oh,
looking
sorry.
for?
Yeah. Well, there's a multitude of things, but I don't necessarily, I'm not going to list them. Overall, I think the project is certainly a benefit to the community and to the site in general. I mean, we've all known what the site has been like for years and years, and pretty degraded and not well kept, and, you know, and it invited lots of trash and God knows what's in that creek. So in addition to Belle Isle Marsh, you know, the creeks are important to the general network. So we would look at things like, and because it's an important, Belle Isle is an important migratory route, you know, this is a stone's throw from Belle Isle. So things that we address are lighting. And if you're lighting it up like, you know, the Yankee Stadium, it's not a good idea. You know, we ask developers to be considerate about that. A far-fetched idea to most people is the type of glass they use for birds to not strike. And I'm sorry, how many stories is this? 7. So, yeah, so there is a certain glass. Another developer on the marsh is now looking into those two situations, and is very welcoming about knowing that. So that's something we always suggest, and that's something we'll include in our comments. But the concern with Japanese, can I just continue
Oh,
a
no,
few minutes?
absolutely.
Okay. With regard to the Japanese knotweed, the removal of that is if you're going to take it down, it really needs to be removed from the root and very carefully disposed of, because it just propagates all over the place. So that's a concern in general. I know it's a real headache for most of the marsh environments. So I wanted to just mention that for sure. And then I know there's probably God knows what in that creek. Is there going to be some kind of sensitive concern about removal of perhaps toxics in that creek, and how will that be done?
I'm not sure if they're gonna be cleaning out or dredging the creek, but I can speak to the fact that they will be pulling out a multitude of asphalt, concrete pieces, trash, and doing a fair bit of mitigation in the back behind the structure, not actually to mention what they're going to pull out to actually build the structure. So that entire lot is going to get cleaned out. There's going to be almost zero impact, and I would dare to say that your stormwater mitigation system is going to have a net zero runoff to the property. So it's not going to create any adverse effects to the water level of the creek. It's not going to add, it's only going to enhance. But as the rest of the commissioners had stated, we feel that we can continue this to next month to give you time to be able to submit your comments.
Appreciate it, honestly.
Absolutely. So we'll continue this, and
Okay.
we look forward to your comments.
Yeah, and we'll get those, long before you have the next meeting.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rick. Next up is a request for an extension of an order of conditions, DEP file number 0610759. This is 459 to 463 Revere Beach Boulevard.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Peter Blaisdell. I'm the project engineer from Williams and Sparagus, 189 North Main Street in Wakefield. I'm sorry, Middleton, I apologize. Good evening. We're here tonight to request a 2-year extension to an order of conditions that was issued by this commission on May 5th, 2021, which is due to expire next month. I asked John if you might like a little presentation. I don't know how many of the members here are new since then. If you might want a little brief overview, I can give that to you.
Yeah, I'm
Please,
new,
thank
so
you.
I'd appreciate it.
I think
All
that'd
right.
be informative.
So, just to give you a little overview, this project has actually been going on for a few years now. So just to give you a quick idea, and Mr. Carici, the gentleman in the end there, he's the owner, so if there's anything I can't answer. So 2017, Mr. Carici actually approached us to do a boundary survey on the property and to do some wetland flagging. So we did that in July of 2017. An abbreviated notice of resource area delineation was filed with the Revere Concom by that man right there from Engineering Alliance, which was then issued a DEP file number. We then took that and we filed a plan with Frank Stringy at the Site Plan Review Commission office. During that process, we received plans for a 10-story building that was to be constructed on the site. After we got through site plan review, they issued a number, we came up with some conditions, and the site itself is actually a little bit of an odd-shaped lot. I don't know if everyone can see that in the corner there. So it's 4 lots. It's approximately 25,725 square feet. It's currently has 3 structures on it with 2 curb cuts and paved driveways in between it. So that was the existing condition. Once we went through site plan review, sorry, rain's kind of sticking us a little bit. So the proposal is to demolish the 3 structures, close off one of the curb cuts, and then create a new driveway down the side of it. And the interesting feature about this building is it's actually going to have interior mechanical stack and rack car parking, kind of like you see in Japan a lot to save. I'm just going to say one of those things where you can order a bag of Doritos, but kind of similar. You push a button, comes down, your car goes in, goes up, and gets stored. So that's a very unique feature about this building. In the existing condition, there's no stormwater protection, anything like that. All the sheet flow comes down the pavement, or sheet flows just back to the wetlands. This proposal will have a DEP-compliant stormwater system. So we received our site plan review letter in February of 2021. After that, we filed a DCR access permit in March 15th, 2021. And then simultaneously, we had filed with the Conservation Commission here. So we got our order for conditions from this board. We got a letter from site plan review. Where it went off the rails was with DCR. At the time, COVID was kind of kicking up. People were working remotely, and it just sort of disappeared in the state somehow, and that's kind of where it languished. So in the meantime, let's get out of COVID here, the blip or whatever you want to call it, and Mr. Carici was trying to figure out exactly where the project stood. Took some back and forth, and we finally were able to get some FaceTime with DCR. So in the meantime, we have a filing with DCR. one of the things that they were okay with was that we're right across from the existing beach house. There's a sewer line that runs from the beach house to the trunk that runs in the back for the Point of Pines. Not an unusual request. This has happened at a few places along the beach. We want to relocate the sewer around the building. DCR was okay with it. They were actually okay with the curb cuts and that type of thing. So they just, at the very last, they just said, could you just make sure that MIPA is okay with this? You know, we'd already been through all the thresholds, and we didn't feel that we were required for a MIPA review. But we did contact MIPA, and they actually came up with a little bit of a different take on it. We're currently in the works with them, so we're kind of in a situation right now where DCR is waiting to see what MIPA wants to do, and MIPA wants to see what DCR wants to do. But in the meantime, our permit is going to expire next month, so we want to keep that going for another 2 years. We feel we're going to be able to get this resolved, hopefully fairly quickly. So with that, I hope I didn't bore you too badly, but that's the 7-year saga of this story, and hopefully we'll be able to get Mr. Carici to put a building up pretty soon, because it should be a pretty unique one. But with that, any questions you have, please feel free to fire away.
Yes, through the chair. The argument or discussion that's going on between MIPA and DCR, is that in regards to the sewer pipe?
No.
No?
No, as a matter of fact, DCR is fine with it.
What is the extent of the discussion?
So the extent of the discussion is that Revere Beach up there is actually still considered a coastal dune, even though the coastal dune has not existed for more than a century. The dune's gone. However, geologically speaking, it's a coastal dune. This board issued a order of conditions, but this is not a state agency. This is a local permit granting authority. We don't trip any of the MIPA thresholds, which is amount of wastewater, amount of average daily trips, that type of thing, length of sewer. We don't trip any of those thresholds, which is what we mentioned to the director. However, in her mind, she felt that because we were altering the curb cut, that is, we're going to close one off, we're somehow doing work on the dune. But it's also called the jurisdictional mismatch. In other words, when you go to dinner and they say, the steak comes with peas, corn, and carrots, you don't get all three, you just get one. So we're actually telling them that the actual work within the buffer zone is already granted by this authority here, the Revere Conservation Commission. The work that would be just to close off the curb cut would just be a DCR permit. The two are they're not related. One does not have to have the other. So they asked us if we could possibly keep the curb cuts the way they are and not alter them. And we're trying to get an answer back. If we did that, would she then say that we don't need MIPA review? So we asked for what's called a request for an advisory opinion. And we were not actually able to get that because we posed this other question, that is, if Mr. Carici changes the design of the building somewhat, would we then maybe be able to not have to have MIPA review? I sent that over to DCR. DCR wants to see what MIPA wants to say. Again, MIPA wants to say what DCR wants to say, and I feel like we're on a little bit of a carousel. But that's the argument.
It seems to me that if you're going to keep the curb cuts, you couldn't keep them as they are, you'd have to move them if nothing else.
So in our mind, it's actually a good thing because most Mass DOT or anybody, they generally want less access onto highways. So we'd actually be taking away one access and actually just moving one over, actually making it a little bit of a better situation. But it's a very strange situation. I don't know why. And the MIPA director, who's very nice and she's smarter than I'll ever be, just kept on saying to us, I'm having a hard time with this one. So I'm hoping she gives us something in writing that actually might help us out a little bit. I have emailed her since then to say if we did keep everything the way as you suggested, would you then essentially leave us alone?
Yeah, we've already had some difficulties with things that are classified as dune areas that are historically completely inaccurate. I have another quick question.
Sure.
How many units are you going to end up having in this?
So this is proposed to be 59 units.
And you're going to have how many parking spaces?
90 spaces. So
Okay, so you didn't get a variance from the city then?
No, we didn't need one.
Good, thank you. I'm glad to hear it.
So am I. One less permit.
Anything else?
I would just state that I walked the property today, and it looks, very much cleaned up from where it was. It's really nice. I think, having seen the properties, like just as we did the tour, those buildings, once they're taken down from Revere Beach and replaced with what is going to be a beautiful complex, I think this is going to be exactly the right direction that Revere Beach is supposed to be going towards. And I hope that you're able to figure out all the things that you need to get done in order to beautify Revere Beach, because this will probably be the most beautiful building on it.
It's going to be very nice. Not only that, but there's going to be a restaurant on the top floor. So we're hoping that we get this in the ground. And yeah, I agree with you. I think it'd be nice.
I wish you good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'd just like to pose a comment as well. Thank you for cleaning up the site, and thank you to the owner for cleaning up the site. Just to prevent like future debris issues, just making sure stockpiles are covered. It's already in the order of conditions, but obviously we didn't see that the first time that we walked the site. And just making sure that there are silt fences along that back area of the marsh to prevent any of that debris, even if it's just materials, because obviously we were seeing some of that already, so.
Yeah, we
I'll
definitely.
go over it again with Mr. Carici. And like I said, it's been a little while. So
Of course.
Yeah,
we'll refresh ourselves on everything that we're supposed to do and make sure it's done.
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anybody have any objections to extending the order? Hearing none, I'd like to.
I make a motion
To
to
extend?
extend the order, notice of intent.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
Thank you,
very
everybody.
much.
Appreciate your time.
Next up is a request to amend an order of conditions, DEP file number 0610797, 84 Arcadia Street. And this is for comments made by the DEP to elevate.
Did you want the podium?
It's marking his territory.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, Rick Salvo, Engineering Alliance, here this evening on behalf of John Nakajian, Arm Construction, to request an amendment to the order of conditions that was issued under DEP file number 0610797. Was issued almost a year ago. I think many of the members here were actually sat on this hearing. And as you look at the plan that's before you, it probably doesn't look a whole lot different than the plan that was approved. This site too fell into the coastal dune issue with the department. We were able to work with them over the summer and fall and into the winter to basically do some additional fact-finding for them and make some modifications to the plan. And the DEP was good enough to allow us to come back here to modify the order of conditions to include their comments, which in turn will allow them to withdraw their appeal once they see the amendment. Benefit here is this stays in the City of Revere's hands, it stays under your control. It doesn't become a superseding order of conditions that puts it under the state's control and sort of takes it away from the city. So that said, the information that was submitted to them consisted of some supplemental soil testing, some minor changes to the drainage calculations to prove compliance with all of the DEP standards. There are a few changes that were made. As you might recall, this parking lot is a pervious asphalt parking lot. The reason why we chose that BMP is given the elevation of this site, it's difficult to put in things like catch basins and that sort of thing, so we would have had to elevate this site up 2 or 3 feet to do that, which would have caused all kinds of problems to the surrounding properties. So this allows us to basically keep it at grade. The DEP handbook requires that you don't have pervious pavement within 10 feet of a property line. So there's a little bit of regular asphalt that'll be here, and then a strip of regular asphalt that'll be here, which will all be pitched towards the pervious. And then the biggest change is the rear building. This used to be an enclosed garage at the base level. Now it'll be like an open carport, so it'll be up on concrete piers. The front building, which is, everyone knows the site, there's an existing multifamily building there. That multifamily building has a basement in it, believe it or not, in this neighborhood. We were able to convince the department that by us tearing that down, removing the basement, building a slab-on grade structure with flow-through foundations between the slab and the floodplain elevations was actually a net improvement. So the front building did not change. The rear building ends up on concrete piers. The height of the building did not change. We just simply took what was an enclosed garage and now we make it sort of a carport type situation. Allows for free flow of any floodwaters in there. That was essentially the changes. Like I said, I think from where you're sitting, looking at the site plan, the plan really doesn't look any different, but for the elevation of the rear building. So we'd respectfully request that the commission would consider issuing an amended order of conditions so we can hopefully have the DP withdraw their approval and move this project forward.
Okay. Just before we take any comments, questions, concerns, we'll open the hearing. Apologies. Can you say that all again? No. Anyways, so at this time, I'd like to see if the commissioners have any objections to any of this, or any questions, excuse me.
No, I think having the flow-through garage area is definitely going to be super helpful and fulfill all Mass DEP's requirements, so thank you for that.
Anything else?
We'll make a motion.
So at this time, I'd like to open up to the public, if they have any questions or concerns.
Anthony Pasiali, 51 Arcadia Street. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I just want to thank everybody for dealing with this for over a year, and I wanted to thank the developer. His project has been held up partly because of me and now because of Massachusetts. And holding costs for over a year is a nightmare for this guy, so I'm really sorry that this happened to you. This is a win-win for my neighborhood. Everybody in my neighborhood wants it. I talked to everybody about what it would look like. People were concerned that the place was going to be elevated. I explained it to everybody. We want it. We want 5 beautiful townhouses and not what was going to be there before. So please, please, please let them do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Angela Garino-Suwaya, the Ward 5 counselor. I am 100% in favor of this project compared to what we were supposed to have to begin with. This is a blessing.
Yeah.
So please approve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay. Hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion to amend actually, no, excuse me, first. I'd like to close the hearing, motion to close the hearing. Let's do this right.
Make a motion?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And I'd also like to now entertain a motion to approve this amendment.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Excellent. Okay, next up is the request for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. This is for the city of Revere. This is for the Wonderland Park. I know, right? I'd like to open the hearing.
So this will be the only meeting we ever have about Wonderland, right?
One of many.
Yeah.
One of many. Thank you very much. Yeah, there you go. Turn the mic on. Perfect.
We good? All right.
Yes.
For the record, my name is Claire Hogeboom. I'm wetland scientist with LEC Environmental Consultants representing the city of Revere for this ANRAD application. We are seeking confirmation of wetland resource area boundaries on the property known as Wonderlands, but it includes a few parcels at 190 Veterans of Foreign Wars Highway, or VFW Highway, and some portions of Dunn Road as well. Joining me is Brittany Ferber from Niche Engineering. They prepared a floodplain analysis that accompanied our application, which I'll ask her to discuss a little further, but I just wanted to get into a quick overview of the site and the other wetland resource areas first, and then I'll just pass things off to her. So I'm sure many are familiar with the site. It was previously developed for the Wonderland dog racing track. It previously contained the elevated racetrack in the southwest portion of the site, an associated clubhouse, various buildings, paved parking lots, paved areas in general. And that since was closed in 2010. And between 2017 and 2019, the buildings were all demolished. So presently, what remains is the elevated dog track, along with most of the paved parking areas and some remnant, more degraded paved parking areas as well, along with some remnant foundations associated with those buildings. I'm going to try to point, but also speak into this
Good.
enough.
Tilt it this way just a little bit. There you go. Perfect.
I just want everybody to still be able to see it. So the site is sort of bifurcated by the Eastern County Ditch that runs through this portion of the site, sort of in a east-west direction. It splits up the southern two-thirds of the site where all of the development associated with the Wonderland dog track was once present and sort of still is very developed. The northern one-third that remains has some upland manicured lawn that remains there, some bordering vegetated wetlands as well. I'm just going to start flipping through the plan sheets. I think this is my sign for a new easel. And so in the southwesternmost portion of the site, this large orange indicates the non-bordering vegetated wetland. That's in the interior of that dog racetrack. That wasn't there when the site was very active, but it had since developed since everything was closed, and the maintenance of the site was not really upkept for very long afterwards. Since the closing of the track, we identified these two smaller isolated or non-bordering vegetated wetlands as well. I believe this is identified as our D series wetland. That's about 800 square feet and change, quite a small area. And then the somewhat larger non-bordering vegetated wetland than the D series is our C series wetland at about 2,300 square feet. So both very small wetlands in comparison to the dog track non-bordering vegetated wetland there. The two on the southwesternmost portion of the site have sort of developed in these historically developed excavated areas, so very historically disturbed areas, and have just developed over time. The larger sort of C-series wetland there contains a lot of debris and trash within it, so it's really serving like very low functions and values from a ecological perspective there. And right here is where we start seeing the sort of western extent of our Eastern County Ditch. We have the commuter rail line that's just running along sort of the western property boundary here. So the Eastern County Ditch runs in a very linear man-made channel, and a very fringing, bordering vegetated wetland runs along that Eastern County Ditch. Be very careful.
Just a point of information, I think it'd be a good point to tell us where that ditch drains into,
Yes, of course.
so that we can know that as you go along with your presentation.
Would you like to know now, or I'll
Yeah,
get?
I would like to know right now, yeah.
Skip it to the end,
I
Joe.
suspect I know, but I'd just like you to state it
Yeah,
for the
of
record.
course. We'll flip to the next sheet, because that is where. This is sort of in the northernmost portion of the site. We have, I believe that is, I had the street, Shawmut Street, I think it is, that runs to the north of the site there. The Eastern County Ditch enters a culvert that's just behind residential development on that street. And it ultimately does discharge into the Rumney Marsh system, but it goes through a series of tidal gates and culverts beneath road crossings, under parking lots, a lot of development that it travels through before it gets to its ultimate discharge point. And since we're at this part of the site, we do have a little bit of that bordering vegetated wetland, a little finger-like projection that runs within a very narrow fringing, sort of manicured lawn portion of the site there. I just wanted to backtrack to this previous plan sheet. That's just between, sort of in our central portion of the site. This is where the Eastern County Ditch continues within the site, and just here where Dunn Road extends within sort of the western portion of the site. The bordering vegetated wetland does expand a bit more. It's not so much fringing anymore directly on the stream itself. It's extremely dominated by Phragmites or common reed, which is an invasive colonizing type of plant. What we've also experienced throughout the rest of the site is Phragmites is very common within existing paved areas that would not typically be considered wetlands, yet it is a wetland plant. So through our delineation, we did sort of exclude areas where we saw Phragmites, but we understood that there was pavement directly beneath that plant because it is such an invasive colonizing plant. And it's not entirely representative of the true hydrology or a true wetland sort of presence in those areas. And then just lastly, there is a small little orange finger there. That's our last non-bordering vegetated wetland. It's just a little sliver that appears to have also developed through historic development. It's receiving some sort of drainage from Dunn Road, and some spoil piles are also present around it that sort of directs sort of surface hydrology towards there. But we observed some other wetland plants that prompted us to include that in our non-bordering vegetated wetland flagging. So we went through our non-bordering vegetated wetlands. We have 4 in total. We have bordering vegetated wetlands along the Eastern County Ditch. The Eastern County Ditch itself has a protectable resource area, which is bank. Along with that, since it's a perennial stream, mean annual high water is also associated with that ditch. And from that mean annual high water boundary is a 200-foot riverfront area, which we also have on site. And essentially, because this ditch is so linear and has abrupt slopes, bank and mean annual high water are generally coincident throughout the whole extent. So they're one and the same on this site. The final resource area that we are seeking confirmation of is related to the floodplain. So under the Wetlands Protection Act, there's sort of a few tiers or a few different ways to identify floodplain from a protectable standpoint. Inland flooding can be sort of identified in 2 different ways. One is bordering land subject to flooding, and that's where it is sort of bordering on some other resource area or receiving that flooding from some other resource area. Isolated land subject to yes, isolated land subject to flooding or ILSF, I'm sorry, is more when it is contained and sort of isolated from any other features. It's a bowl, a depression, an isolated depression that receives flooding. We identified through the FEMA flood maps that the 100-year floodplain extends to elevation 12, which essentially encompasses most of our site. But since it is within this sort of coastal area, but it is a little further inland, we understand that there is sort of an overlap where we're getting inland flooding influences and we also get coastal flooding influences. So that's where we asked Niche to perform this floodplain analysis to determine where does that inland and where does that coastal flooding influence sort of overlap, or where does it meet, and where would that elevation be determined to be inland versus coastal. Their report ultimately determined that that elevation is at 4.5. So I'm going to flip over to the other side where I have a plan set that shows the BLSF bordering land subject to flooding boundary. And I'm just going to pass that off to Brittany so she can explain that a little bit further.
Thank you. As Claire said, I'm Brittany Ferber with Niche Engineering. We performed this study to kind of distinguish between the coastal flood area and the inland flood zone. Our first step was to review the FEMA flood insurance study, and we did determine that their study only took into account the coastal flooding for this zone. It didn't look at any inland flooding, and we wouldn't be able to use that as a representative factor for our inland flooding. So we really wanted to separate our inland resource from the coastal area, so we isolated that Eastern County ditch as if it is anywhere and not near the coast, and we performed our analysis using the methodology outlined in 310 CMR with 7 inches of rain in 24 hours. And we delineated the watershed that goes to the ditch upstream of the site and throughout our site, and tried to figure out, we used a program called HECRAS that cuts cross sections through the site and through the ditch to determine that water surface elevation as it goes through the site. And ultimately what we found is that the water will come up to about elevation 4.55 independent of any coastal influence. And that line is shown here in blue. So you can see a large portion of the site is still considered within this bordering land subject to flooding area. So while most of the site would be in that coastal flood zone, a large portion of it, so it would be the blue and then this way, that would all be considered within the bordering land subject to flooding, which will have impacts on the project later.
I just have a question for clarification. So both of your companies were hired by the city of Revere to do this exact study, to be able to, I mean, I think that the two basic things is flooding and the delineation of the wetlands, like exactly where the wetlands are. So has that study already been completed? Is that what this is? Or are you still in the process of doing it?
That's what they've done.
Yeah. Okay.
They've already done their delineation in this process.
Okay, and do you know when we're going to see the actual site?
So we'll get to that.
Okay.
I do have a question about the smaller isolated wetland that's adjacent over there. Does that fall within the 200 feet of that creek, or is that outside of that? No, up. Yeah, on near Dunn Road.
I don't believe we had the 200-foot riverfront area placed on the plans, but we can certainly put that on revised plans so it's clearer.
Yeah, I think that would, just to make it a little bit clearer when we're out there. And it is definitely an extensive delineation, so thank you for that. But we definitely, because of the scope and the magnitude of this, we would definitely want to have our own peer-reviewed delineation of this. And this estimated around $7,700 for this, just as a heads up. And because of given the weather, given the amount of wetlands on the property, we would ask that we be given some time to also confirm this and then schedule our site walk downs for early May, if that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been in touch with John Shu to sort of give you guys a window, and we sort of
Appreciate
gave
that.
our availability. So whenever you schedule it, John will reach out, and we are understandable that their peer reviewer has been retained or is in the process of being retained.
We're in the process of it.
And that's to review both the wetland boundary delineation and the report from Niche. So
Yes.
we certainly welcome the additional
that.
review. Yeah.
Absolutely, and thank you. So we'll probably have to continue this till our June hearing, if that's amenable to you as well.
Sure.
Excellent.
Quick question through the chair.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious about something else. Does this eventually end up, all of this drainage end up in Diamond Creek and then in Saugus River? Is that the flow of the
No, isn't that Bella
area?
Marsh? Or Rumney Marsh?
That is
Excuse me.
Rumney Marsh. Where does this ultimately end up draining out through?
Yes, so the Eastern County Ditch does ultimately discharge into the Rumney Marsh.
You mentioned Sharman Street, and I took out my map and I was trying to follow it on the map, and I ended up looking at the backside of North Shore Road where there is Diamond Creek. That's why I asked you about that.
Okay, I think Diamond Creek is what's on the opposite side of the MBTA line.
Yes,
So like near the blue line is.
yes,
Creek, and then
and it's not going that way.
That's from my understanding, I don't think it is, I believe, so Diamond Creek would be somewhere on this side of the site.
other side, so closer to the blue line.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Closer to this.
it's further, like towards one, it's the closest towards the end of Wonderland. Yeah, it's next to the Wonderland site, like where Wonderland train station is, not the Wonderland site
okay.
is, I'm sorry. Yeah, Diamond Creek is like past that point. I think it runs under the residential portion of like Revere Street on the left-hand side of North Shore Road.
Okay.
Not the right-hand
This
side,
one
where
here.
that borders the beach.
That very well could. We'd have to look into some of our survey. I'm not certain if they went that far. If they did, we could sort of provide a little more information, some supplemental information to the commission if you're interested in sort of the tracing of how it, where the
Well,
Eastern County
yes,
ditch ends
ultimately,
up.
I'd like to know basically what that would have the greatest effect on when we get very high tides, king tides, stuff like that, and how much that affects the drainage in this area.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a lot of residents also bordering Diamond Creek as well, so knowing if any of this runoff would go to their properties would be helpful.
Okay.
You know, this is actually a good time of year I've been noticing myself, there's been times I've gone down the Lynn Marsh at mid-tide, and the whole marsh was full of water because of such saturation all around because of the rain that we've been having. So ultimately, there's a lot of times when drainage really doesn't occur in this area as swiftly as we'd like it to be. So I kind of like to know the route of water in and out of this area.
It might be beyond the scope of sort of requesting the resource area confirmation for this application
is-
process,
yeah,
but
this is more of a delineation of what is actually on the property. I mean, knowing that for the project's sake, later down the road would definitely be something to note, I would say. So at this time, I'd like to, if anyone from the public has any comments, keeping in mind that this is just about the delineation, not about what is potentially going on this site. No? Okay. Do you guys have any further questions before we continue this? Okay. All right, so we'll continue this to June and look forward to seeing you guys then.
all right,
Thank you.
same here. Thanks for your time.
All right, next up is a notice of intent, DEP file number. We're not sure. This is for 48 Jones Road. If you guys want to come up, did you guys receive a file number yet, or no? Not received, yeah, sorry. We'll open the hearing. If you could, there you go, turn the mic on.
I'm Rosa Greco, own the property at 48 Jones Road.
Okay. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
So, since we met last on site, and I
I'll take it.
put together this plan showing, I think you guys have it with you now. We show the gutters coming down to PVC and out to a Caltech chamber here.
Yep.
We've since run the numbers through this Caltech, and it's
If you
gonna
could,
end up being.
if you could state your name for the record.
John Harrison, Britivia Construction.
Thank you.
And this is for 48 Jones Road.
Yep.
We ran the numbers, and it's gonna actually, it's 14, each unit handles 14 cubic feet, and it's 41.5 cubic feet of runoff from the roof. So it's actually gonna be three
3 culverts?
Caltex,
Okay.
3 in line.
So on the plans, you have it noted as 2.
I believe I
right.
have it noted as 1, and we're gonna
Is that? Oh, no, sorry, you're right. It is only
Yep,
1.
yep.
I apologize.
yeah, and so that will now be 3 as noted in our narrative.
Okay.
And, I mean, the reason why I started at 1 is you guys were there when we had a pretty good rainstorm, and the water was leaching very good with the way it was. But when you run the actual numbers from the manufacturer, that's what it works out to. So I think it's fairly simple little addition. Seems to make a lot of sense in that neighborhood and the way
Yeah.
we have it designed.
And you'll be capturing all your runoff as well, so that would be a benefit as well to this project.
Yep.
Thank you for doing your due diligence there.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any of the commissioners have any comments?
Well, based upon seeing what the project's gonna be, I think that'd be in addition to the neighborhood of you being able to even just have that and what your plans, even with having that open area of grass and even what you currently had with the gutter system, which was ingenious. I
Yeah.
gotta give you credit for that.
Yeah. I
so-
wasn't part of that, but it was a very good plan.
So-
You could see it didn't even puddle there.
Yeah.
So you would think you could get away with none, but.
It seems
I
like you
understand
guys,
nowadays,
from
yeah.
conversations with you on site, that you definitely know what it is that you want to do. It looks like the project is going to look beautiful when it's done, and I look forward to seeing the finished product.
Awesome.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Anyone from the audience wish to comment on this? Okay. So unfortunately, because we don't have a DEP file number, we can't close the hearing and we can't vote on it, unfortunately. So once you get the file number, we can issue your notice of intent. And so unfortunately, we have to continue this till next month. But we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much.
Is there a way to get a conditional approval based on getting, no?
No, we have to have a DEP file.
I think
number.
I asked that at the sidewalk. I thought I'd try
No,
one more
that's,
time.
that's all right. That's
No.
why we're here.
Okay, so we'll be back. And, so would we be early on the agenda for the next one? Is that how it typically
I'm
works?
not sure. Well,
Okay.
I don't set the agenda usually, but,
All right. Well, thank you guys very, very much. We appreciate it.
thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you. So do you vote this time or you vote?
No, next time.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah, I did. Oh, yes. So next up, we have an enforcement issue, 134 Broad Sound. This is paving without a permit and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Unfortunately, the resident could not make it. Oh, you are? Okay, sorry, I didn't realize you guys were part of that. I apologize. If you could come up and, thank you, Andrew.
So my name's James Gibson. This is my mother Mona. She's the property owner, and my husband, her husband Robert couldn't be here tonight. He's in the hospital.
Sorry to hear that. Thank you very much for coming. So if he would like to be here to hear the enforcement, and you guys need a little bit more time to get all your ducks in a row, we would be comfortable with what's going on to extend this to the May meeting for you guys. I don't know how you want to handle that.
Lorena Scalero, Conservation Agent. So just to give the other commissioners a sense of like what was done, we sent out a notice of potential violation to the owners, and on March 11th, John Shu, Brian Wilson, and I went to meet with the owner, and we observed that the driveway was paved and that it's like steeply sloped from the back of the home to the street. So in terms of the sedimentation and erosion was certainly taking place. So having the hard surface is an improvement. So it's up to the conservation to consider whether you think that there's an impact with how it is now for storm damage and flooding, and if you want to require them to file an after-the-fact NOI or RDA.
Chair, do you mind if I?
Nope, go ahead, you were on the site walkthrough.
Yes, so I'm also a neighbor. I live very close to where you are, and our area doesn't flood. It just doesn't. So seeing what they've done, where how it's sloped, everything would go straight down to the road. There is a substation there for all the water if it ever goes through. I've lived where I live for the last 8 years. We have not once flood, and we have had brutal floods. I have the home closest to the ocean in Olive Revere Beach, and I haven't had one flood. You're further down than me. So I understand that there should have been certain things done as far as for the paving. I understand that, and I'm sure you're sorry for not doing it the proper way. I do feel that further dragging this along, when I do feel personally, I feel it was an improvement what they did. I know there were certain things that have to be done, but I think that by having you before us has shown to other people in the neighborhood and to everyone else what needs to be done in the future. And I think that having to remove anything or having to do anything additional would be to the detriment of them and to the area. My recommendation would be to allow them to have it and to move forward, and for the people in the neighborhood to know that there's a right way to do it, and they're now in front of us because of that. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? Marina.
Yeah, just to pass on the message for John's suggestion for this was that we can add to their file if they'd like to repave or do another change to the driveway, that they'll have to come before us.
The input that we've had from our commissioners here, I would definitely recommend that we put something in the file for future reference, that if you were to redo this, or if anybody who owns the property was to redo this or modify in any way, that it would be looked at. We would make sure that it would trigger something. I would be comfortable with that at this point, and knowing the area myself, knowing that it really doesn't, it's not an area that floods or that has runoff in any way, shape, or form over there. It's definitely a little bit elevated, all things considered. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on it, but for now, we'll put something in the file for the property, and we'll move forward from there. But thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So next up, we had some correspondence. This was on the MBTA's 5-year vegetation management plan, which they will be presenting, I'm sure, at some point. We had some site visits and inspections. The March 11th was the Abruzzi Street in Broad Sound. The 23rd, we were all there for all of the walk downs that we did. And at this time, I'd like to have some open discussion from our commissioners. Anything to add?
I mean, something super random, but I might help if we just happen to have a tripod in here that is just a common use tripod for everyone.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe on wheels or something, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that would be a huge expenditure, but, if that's at all possible, that we could just throw that in the mix or ask somebody,
I'm
'cause-
sure we can find one.
yeah, it's a
Problem
little
with that is-
ridiculous.
The problem is not getting it, is where you stow it
Sure.
when it's not being used.
Well, they have
That's
a
the
giant
problem.
TV in the corner. I mean, there's things that I'm sure we could find something.
No, I agree.
Back room, I don't know. I'm just an idea to throw out there to the world and see if anyone watching this that has anything to do with the city of Revere could make this magical dream happen. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Anything else? All right, well, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you very much.